Something I think that Legends did better than canon when it comes to Clone Wars is having like the Techno Union and all those groups like better defined.
And don't get me wrong, I love me some Padme content. I really do. Every time I see her on a page, a light in my heart just turns on. Hey guys, welcome to the Rogue 3 podcast, where we discuss Star Wars with a positive outlook on the saga we love. I'm Austin.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Austin.
And today we are going to be discussing the new Master of Evil book by Adam Christopher. This released on November 11th of 2025, so just a little bit ago at the time of recording. And we're going to break down the book. We have a couple questions to ask each other. We're going to be continuing with that same format we've been doing for books. But before we jump into that, how have you guys been experiencing Star Wars this week?
Yeah, I've been now back at work for anyone who's been following that. So I don't have as much free time to be working on my Star Wars projects. But the one that I've continued is I still am trying to watch basically all of the shows with like a episode or two, depending on how long they are in the mornings when I'm doing breakfast and stuff like that. And I'm on the Young Jedi Adventures binge. I finished season 1. That was a lot of fun. I didn't expect the twist of who Tabor was for all those people who have maybe watched it, or now you have a reason to watch it. And I've gotten into season 2. I'm probably 8 episodes in or so. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I also listened and then read the last one after finishing this book of the Canto Bight short stories. I had had the audiobook for a while, and I'd listened to some of them, and then it went away, and then I got it back and I listened to another one. And then I finished by reading the last one, which was by far my favorite, by The Ride by John Jackson Miller. It was so much fun. It was a really good one. And I had never really heard very much about those stories, so I really liked them.
I love it.
Nice.
Did y'all see that season 3 of Young Jedi Adventures would be the last one?
Yeah, only 7 episodes, which is very
I didn't see that.
Oh, wow.
The other two had,
really
or I think, yeah, or at least the first 7 or the last, like it sounded like it was just the last 7 episodes.
All right. Interesting.
I'm going to get there right in time, I think.
To replace it.
Maybe. Yeah.
Austin, how about you?
So obviously reading the book, that was definitely the biggest thrust of it, because it only came out a week ago, so it was pretty tight turnaround. But so that was the bulk of it. But then also I've been getting into the holiday spirit, I guess the Life Day spirit. Life Day was this past week, so I carefully positioned all of my Star Wars ornaments in view of the screens behind me. And then I also today broke out my Life Day tumbler. It's kind of blur if I got Chewy on there.
So good.
Yeah, that was from I think that was from the first Life Day collection they did, probably like 2019 or so. It was in Galaxy's Edge, was pretty fresh. But yeah, so just getting in the Star Wars Christmas mood.
Excellent.
Nice.
Well, in addition to urgently finishing the book in the last week, I made a couple of fun purchases to celebrate Life Day. Austin and I did together. The first of these purchases is the Stranger Chimere's lightsaber from the Legacy lightsaber series sold at Walt Disney World.
Nice.
And then I also adopted a loft cat.
Hello. Oh, I like that.
And this is part of the Galactic Archive series that you guys may have seen me review.
It's really nice that Galaxy's Edge very much remembers the Acolyte. Like
It
they're always
does.
telling, like we're a couple sabers deep now, so it's fun.
I know, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't really expecting to get another Acolyte saber. You know, we got Master Soul's lightsaber, I guess, earlier this year. So maybe this was stuff already in the pipeline. I don't know. Either way, I love it. I'm excited. I'm excited to take a peek at how this works. Apparently, it splits apart. So we'll see how that works out.
I remember gasping when that moment happened.
Yeah.
One of the top 5 best battles in all of Star Wars. Love it.
Yeah. It was so good.
What'll be cool is if I can pull off the whip, Bernestra's whip.
Oh God, that is so. As you guys know, I do a lot of 3D printing, and I've never seen someone design Bernestra's lightsaber, but I've done a little bit of design, and I really want to do the hilt. And like my dream is to figure out how to do like a whip. And I
Mhm.
think some of the like professional places that are unlicensed have done them, but I would
Mhm.
love to try and make one myself that is the whip and have it like strung on the wall, and so I can
Yeah.
light it up, because that would
His
be next level.
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can pull it off. Your skills have been progressing. Your powers have doubled.
I've
Your last, I
doubled
mean, last
this last few months. All right. Well,
We'll
shall we
see.
jump into
Yeah.
the book?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, just to briefly intro this, we're going to be talking about Master of Evil. Now, this is a book exclusively featuring Darth Vader as well as some fun additional characters. And this does occur just after the end of Revenge of the Sith, and actually weaves in between certain arcs of the Darth Vader comic run in 2017, which was done by Charles Soule. So actively encourage you to give those a read before you give this a read.
Mhm.
I thought it enhanced my read of it, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. As far as spoilers may be ahead. So if you have not read it, be sure you go and read it. We always recommend to read it first because I'm a hypocrite. And
On this podcast,
on this
we
podcast,
read the book before we spoil
we
it.
What spoiler?
spoil it. And two of the three of us actually do that. All right. So just restarting. We're going to, as always, break this down into 4 chapters. We'll start with our spoiler-free impressions of the book, but then we'll enter chapter 1, the story overview, chapter 2, the characters, chapter 3, the connections to a wider galaxy, and chapter 4, I like to think of it as an epilogue, the lessons learned, where we'll break down the morals of the story in a Clone Wars style fortune cookie that you might find at the beginning of a Clone Wars episode. But let's start with our spoiler-free impressions. I'll go ahead and start. I have mixed thoughts. I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was a really fun read. I am getting the impression that whoever is doing advertising at Lucasfilm or Lucas Publishing or whatever is maybe having some trouble with selling the book in an accurate light. With The Last Order, we talked about how they really sold it as this is a big story right after Rise of Skywalker. And with this one, they really sold it as this gothic horror novel. I got some horror vibes towards the last third of it, but the first 2/3 really didn't give me super big horror vibes. So I think I was getting excited for something that this wasn't going to be. You definitely get the gothic feel, and I really enjoyed the read through. I really enjoyed our character of Goth going through it. And I enjoyed his character arc. I enjoyed seeing some of the dark side visions that we got to see, but I think having that expectation may have hurt going into it that I wouldn't have felt if I hadn't been set up to think I was maybe getting a horror novel. You know what I'm saying? And that may be my fault. I haven't re-reviewed the advertising for it. Maybe I put something into it that wasn't there, but that's how I feel anyways. I had a fun time. It was well written for sure. And I enjoyed it, but I had some expectations that just didn't get hit.
It's always on the expectations with what you
I know
are thinking the book is going to be, and it changes how you feel about it, right? Because I kind of felt the same way. I'm not a big horror person in general, but I was like, okay, it's going to be like a macabre style gothic horror, a la Dracula or Frankenstein, that kind of thing, and it didn't really hit me that way. I still really enjoyed it. I mean, I read it in like 5 days. I was not working at the time, so when I picked it up, I could read 100 pages a day. And so I was, of the books that we've read together, I read it faster by far than all of the rest. And this is a fairly long one. It's an adult novel, 350 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I think, my least favorite of the ones that we've read together as well. There are a few things that it just didn't land for me. I thought it was really well written. I really love his use of color throughout, and the red and the black. I was like, oh, this could be the red, white, and black series, right? Yeah. And this would like fit so well into those stories of using that. Yeah, there's the Darth Vader, the black, white, and red. I always get the order wrong.
I know, I do too.
But there were some things like revolving around the Force and the temple itself that's kind of plays the center part of the story that didn't quite land for me, in that inclusion of the Techno Union, or the kind of uh, the Keel and Oyuka, those two characters for me didn't quite hit home. They felt somewhat just ancillary. And so parts of it, I was just like, I'm not that interested in their part of this story. So I kind of just left it to the side in a way. So I did enjoy it. I read it. It was a good read, and it's an interesting story, but it just didn't like hit me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as y'all. It was a book that I enjoyed large swaths of, but like the end was like the overall product was not my favorite book. And I'm very curious as to what the pitch of this book was, like when they like pitched the books to Lucien Publishing, or like what the, because sometimes they pitch the story to them, other times the story's pitched to them. I'm kind of curious as to what that was, because I feel it's much hyped as like a Vader book, and I would say Vader was just like a member of the ensemble of this book. And I would argue that there's kind of like four sets of characters in this. You had Vader, and then you had Gotham, TC-99, and then you had the Keel and Oyuka. Like, I feel like Vader was like no more or less in this book than those other groups of people. Honestly, some of his stuff was like not as interesting as some of the stuff happened with other people. It was very odd, but I definitely would enjoy reading like more Adam Christopher books. Like, I think,
Oh yeah.
I think it was well written. I just don't know that I don't know what the thrust behind telling this story was. Like,
I think that's really the trick with, or the trouble rather, with all this Darth Vader content we get. Darth Vader doesn't have a character. I mean, he has a character arc, but we've got a lot of static characterization. And it has to be static. You know, we have a point A and a point B where he is the same. And for him to like roller coaster his way through that really wouldn't fit the character very well. And when we have these stories that are supposed to look deeply into him, we're not going to get a whole lot. You know, these stories always love to look back on, you know, his feelings for Padme, and really they're all stories about his desire to bring her back. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Padme content. I really do. Every time I see her on a page, a light in my heart just turns on, because it's just fun. And I do want to continue reading it, but there's not, I don't know if there's much more that they can do with these deeply personal Darth Vader stories, which is why it's always surprising to me that we get so much and that people still want so much, because we've seen Darth Vader. We know Darth Vader. There's not a lot more to him besides what we've seen. And there are some interesting things that rose out of this that I enjoyed, but not as a Darth Vader story.
Yeah.
You know, that part for me was to the side of the focus of this story.
To me, the big crux of this story was really the Empire and how it's formulating and already formulated, right? You know, basically a month or so within a year of the end of the Clone Wars. That to me is like what the bigger story was about for me. Not so much the Darth Vader part, but these other people who are now a part of an empire and figuring out how does this thing work.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do want to say, look at that cover. That's a cool cover.
It is.
I really like that cover art.
Yeah,
I think it's brilliant. And I think it would have fit a Darth Vader horror novel really, really well. And they did introduce horror. You know, in the last third of it, we have the Temple of Dice.
Let's not get too deep into spoiler. It's getting a little spoilery. Yeah.
It just in the last third of it, it gets a little bit more horror.
Yeah. I think with that said, like our feelings don't extend to the author or anything, like as much as that doesn't need to be said, right? Like, but what we want to do as a podcast, and on this podcast, as we say, is that we want to keep it positive. So even though it's not our favorite story or our favorite book or things like that, we're still going to like try and look at the things that we did enjoy of it, the parts of it that stood out for us and things like that. Because that's what we want to have in our Star Wars community. And I hope that, we, even when we have stories that we, don't fully jive with, that we can still find those good things that are there, right?
Absolutely, and it's not hard to find good things
Oh,
in this
no.
book. There's
And
plenty
there's
of
nothing,
very good.
It's not a bad book.
Yeah,
there's
no.
nothing wrong with it. I think
right.
it's just what we were expecting from it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it at all. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to talk about the story first.
Yeah, so chapter 1, the story. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the story and talk about a few different questions about how the story was set up, how it unfolded. So if, again, as we said, if you haven't read the book, this is where you're going to enter that spoiler territory. So if you want to stop, pause, go read it, and then come back, you can do that. But from this point on, we're going to be full of spoilers. So for chapter 1, the story, I want to start with what was essentially chapter 1 and talk about the opening, because as a Darth Vader novel, I was like, okay, we're going to have Darth Vader, and we open with Count Dooku in the prologue, which I wasn't expecting. So how did you guys like the story of its opening on Count Dooku, going to this temple, lifting it up into the ship, which is maybe the most powerful Force moment we've seen in canon so far? I imagine the temple is large. And then shifting to Vader and kind of going through this same motions of defying his master and this story of the Sith that, you're always fighting against your master. So how did you guys like the opening with Count Dooku and how that plays into the rest of the story, focusing on Vader?
Well, Dooku is my favorite Sith, so I was very excited to get a Dooku chapter when I wasn't expecting it. And I think it actually made me even more impressed by Dooku, the fact that he was able to successfully lie to Palpatine. He was able to tell him oh, the temple was it didn't exist, or I can't remember exactly what he says, but and Palpatine was like, okay, and just kept on chucking, which is I feel like very uncharacteristic of Palpatine.
Yeah.
But I do think that was really cool, seeing Dooku be strong in the Force. I will say, and this will probably come up in other parts of the conversation, I don't quite understand the dynamics of the temple. When they were first describing it, I'm imagining it's very large, Mayan pyramid style thing, and he got it on a ship, and then it seems like it's Vader has a piece. I don't know if it's he shrunk it down, or if it's just a brick from it. I don't quite know what the deal is there. So that we can come back to that. But the Dooku stuff was great, and I loved that opening bit.
I loved seeing the way that Dooku. I always love seeing the way that people interact with battle droids. So it was fun to see Dooku interact with battle droids. Someone we haven't brought up yet, Sarnath.
Yeah.
So I thought Sarnath was a very interesting character. I always love when we dive into these. What is it? An ST series droid?
Yeah, the super tactician battle droid, basically.
Something like that. Like Kalani from Rebels, and I think he may have been a bit in Clone Wars as well. I think those are very interesting droids, and I like to see content featuring them. So that was a pleasantly surprising inclusion, not just in the prologue, but throughout the story, to see one of those. And I like that almost cold, ruthless, tactical mindset with no humanity at all. I just think it's very interesting. But sticking just to the prologue, maybe the temple was a room, and that was the temple. Maybe our problem is that we were visualizing temples being large, but temples don't have to be large. A temple can be a very small thing. And so perhaps it was just a very, very small temple. I think this idea of a crane lifting a temple out of the ground. I was also picturing it being underground for some reason. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, I thought that too. So there must have been something that
there must have been something.
I was under the impression it was subterranean.
Okay. I was always picturing a ziggurat style, which is I think how he describes it later, is kind of step pyramid in a way.
So can't think of
how did you guys? Small. How did you guys feel thinking that, to me, Count Dooku and Darth Vader are eras apart, but really they're not. It's a couple days, a week, and so that to me was funny. Where I was reading it, and I was like, oh, this is feels like it's 10 years later, 15 years later. And it's like a year ago when this happened. And that like threw me off. It felt like it's like so far before the rest of the story, but it's really not. And so I thought that was kind of interesting to see and think about how close Count Dooku and Darth Vader are, not just in like timeline, but also like their behavior towards Palpatine. I liked seeing Count Dooku defying Palpatine because we haven't seen that. We've never really seen very much of the relationship that Dooku has towards his master. It's only in the Clone Wars, it's only from top down, from Palpatine to Dooku, telling him, go do this, go do that. And so I really liked seeing that from the apprentice's perspective up towards the master and how you behave and what you lie about.
Yeah, Dooku, I feel like we don't... I think it's like the trouble with Anakin and Vader looking different. But like mentally to me, I just do not ever think of Dooku and Vader having like anything common. They're like very similar characters. Like they're like backstories and everything of being like Jedi that had trouble with the Order and like rejected it. Obviously to various, like very different degrees. And again, being separated by a week, I think is notable. So that it's also, another thing that's neat is like, you know, we had Dooku for such a short time. Like he was on screen for maybe a grand total of like 15 minutes of two movies.
That's generous.
Right.
And because he's like introduced at the end of one movie and dies at the beginning of the other. And I think that it's this book like showed he was like thinking long term. Like he was like, oh, this temple is going to benefit me. Like when I overthrow Palpatine or like after Palpatine's gone or whatever. And it's like, it's neat to think about Dooku in that context.
I had never thought about Dooku's like end game. Like what does Dooku really want? And I don't know if we've really had, you know, we've had some early Dooku novels. We have all this Dooku pre-Clone Wars content. I would love to see a Dooku at the end of the Clone Wars novel or comic book or something that kind of dives into what does he want. And it would be really cool to have them kind of spin this book into it, and let's see, you know, what was his goal? What were his goals with the temple? Because the book really didn't address what Dooku wanted on the temple.
I think I would want like a Dooku novel set just before the Clone Wars. Setting up the pieces and maybe getting you know the Techno Union and the corporate alliance or the Commerce Guild and corporate alliance all together and trying to form it, but also like we're hearing about his end game and kind of why he's gone from what we see in Tales of the Jedi to that, right?
I want to see the scene of Dooku rolling in like the whiteboard into Palpatine's office and is like, okay, I'm going to hire this bounty hunter, and this bounty hunter is going to hire another bounty hunter. With that bounty hunter it's going to kill her with worms. Like, I want to see that. Chain of command, Ben.
Yeah,
I love that.
I thought it was interesting to see both Vader and Dooku defying Palpatine, and you know. And I thought that was kind of a cool framing for how the temple got into this hyperspace buoy situation where it's just in hyperspace, which is very much like No Space from the High Republic, I think. So, somewhat similar. How did you guys like the parallels between Goth, the main character, and Vader? Goth has this sensation of burning on the inside. And we know, of course, this is shortly after Vader burned all on the outside. And they're both searching for a solution to death and to overcome death. So how did you guys kind of connect that parallel between those two characters and kind of think about how they're both working for the Empire in this new situation? It's brand new. No one really knows how it's working, but also trying to find a solution to their own personal problem at the same time.
One thing, you know, this is diving towards the end of the book, but one thing I really liked was the way that Goth accepted his mortality by the end. Whereas Vader doesn't really accept mortality. To me, Goth seemed like a genuinely good person.
Yeah.
And he seemed to me like a true believer in the Empire in the sense that he thought the Empire was there for good. And it, you know, he really hadn't interacted very much with the Jedi, it seems like. So he really, I think it's easy for us to forget looking in, you know, from the movies that the common person doesn't interact with Jedi. and they're this mystical thing, and it's very believable that maybe they're evil. And so I really liked this view of Goth kind of seeing and how the Empire was evil, or at least how Vader was evil. And his talk down to Vader towards the end of the book, I thought was so epic.
Yeah.
The way he talked to him. I think that one shows how Goth was able to get himself out of the mindset of the Empire, whereas Vader was unable, obviously, towards the end of his life to get himself out. His son was the one who got him out of it. To me, Goth almost seems like the morally stronger character
for sure.
than Vader.
Yeah.
For me, like talking about like the parallels between the two of them, I think it's really neat that Goth like views Vader as like his way out physically. Like I don't think we ever had a character that like looked to Vader's physical state as like an inspiration. Yeah. And I think that was a very interesting concept. Like, I mean, I guess it makes sense that like Vader, we don't see a lot of Vaders running around, so again, it makes sense that, like, he was like, you know, state of the art tech and everything, and Goth like viewed him as his ticket out of his disease. Yeah, I feel like disease is like something that doesn't come up a lot in Star Wars.
No,
like, we don't have a lot of characters that have like
disease,
like chronic illness type thing,
sickness, right? Illness. Yeah.
They have like dismemberments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have
so many, but not as much disease.
Yeah. And so I think that was an interesting. Like,
his disease was interesting.
Talk about a lot about Vader. Do we want to move on to chapter 2, the characters?
Yes,
let's do it. All right, chapter 2, the characters. So, talking about Vader, I think something that really stood out to me in this book is that we see like probably the most between the first half of Revenge of the Sith and the last third of Return of the Jedi. Probably like the kindest we've seen Vader. He is not to Goth and to the people like into the clones that are with him. For those of you that have not read the book and are listening to spoilers, Oppo and Bo, Vader pulls up members of the 501st Legion to go with him on this mission. He's pretty kind to the clones, and then even at the end, he lets some of the characters escape. Like he chooses to let them leave, and that's very unlike Vader.
I remember I texted Austin when I was reading this, and I said, "Does Vader seem really nice to you?" I think it's complicated. I think that we're looking at this as everyone's an Imperial. And so because everyone's on the same side, I think by default, he'll be a little bit nicer, maybe not much nicer, but a little bit more, maybe tolerant is the right word. He seemed to see a lot of himself in Appo specifically with his dismemberment and I think maybe when Vader sees himself in someone, he tends to be a little bit softer when we see that in other material. He even gave Appo a brand new prosthetic that Appo was like, oh my gosh, it barely is indistinguishable. I enjoyed seeing that from a fan perspective, from a story perspective. I'm not sure how much it makes a whole lot of sense to me. But it was notable.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as I was reading. I was like, Vader seems to really care for these people in some ways, right? And I couldn't discern if it's just because it's people he knew while he was a Jedi.
Yep.
And he's not quite fully, like, yes, he's bled a crystal and killed a Jedi and done some pretty bad things already, but he's not like fully enveloped in the dark side yet, but he's trying to get there. He's like the little kid that's like trying to figure it out. And he's still like sees, some of his past with Oppo and Bo and even Goth, who we know was in the opera room with him and Sidious,
which is a very interesting connection.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so I thought, I was like, huh, okay, he has a warm spot for the clones and for this
Mhm.
one other person. But as it went on, it still was like other characters too, kind of. So it was interesting to see that it was, yeah, like a softer version of Vader, not as much like you mess up once and I'm going to kill you, or you just annoy me, you breathe a little loud.
Yeah.
He's the king of that, but
And
yeah,
I
I thought that was
wonder,
interesting.
I forget, with the comic that we read, didn't Vader kill all those clones like
He
on
did.
that
Yeah, he
station?
does. Yeah.
Wasn't like a week
Yes.
after this? Like wasn't that like
Yeah.
No, that
like
was a
right
week
after,
before. That
It
is
was
way
way before
before
this?
before.
this.
Yeah.
It's
So
before it. Yeah.
maybe his softness is reserved specifically for the 501st.
501st.
I do want to note
Yeah,
he did destroy that entire town on Daiso.
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
So this book, it's not all soft Vader. The beginning of
Oh
the book
no.
was much harder Vader.
Yeah.
He seemed to
Mhm.
soften over the course of the book. I'm not sure if that was intentional or if there's a story reason for it.
Mhm. I wonder how he took the loss of the 332nd and Ahsoka,
Hmm.
and how that affected like his relationship kind of to the 501st, because
Hmm.
we don't know when he finds that crash, how far along in the story that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I
But I
can't imagine
wonder
it
how
was
that.
before.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
I figured he
Um.
would have just dealt with that pretty quick. I don't think he would have just. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Well, as we've established, there's a lot of things that happen in the immediate aftermath of Revenge of the
There are a
Sith.
lot of things, but remember, it's just like Kwame said. We got an accordion. We got space
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can take a hammer
Fill
and
fill it
hammer
in there.
all these stories into
Yeah.
it, and I'm
He
okay
just
with that.
his agenda was very full.
His agenda was very full. He was a very busy person, aren't we all?
Moving on to another character, and Austin hit on this a good bit in the last section, but talking about Goth, you know, there's a lot of these villain novels that we've had in the Disney canon. They all seem to feature a a POV character that's like viewing the
Mhm.
villain rather than putting us in the head space of the villain.
Mhm.
So, for example, like in Phasma, it's like told through like Vimerati's perspective, and
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
Thrawn, it's really told through Eli Vanto's perspective of like viewing these characters do their evil deeds. What did we think about Goth as a new kind of entry into that group of characters?
I very much enjoyed Goth. I really liked TC99.
Yeah.
Mm.
Adored him. Would love to see more content with him. He was one of my favorite pieces of the entire book. So,
Mhm.
and their relationship was so precious. And I just loved seeing that dynamic thread the book. And the way that TC99 worried for him.
Mhm.
That was excellent as well.
And he worried for
For
TC99
TC99,
too,
yeah,
when
yeah.
he's transforming into Boxer and taking on this BX Matrix. And
Mhm.
so I liked Goth a lot. I like seeing the Imperial Guard and thinking about
Mhm.
what they are doing and how they're going on missions. They're not just like standing around looking menacing and red. They're actually doing things.
Mhm.
And I liked the inclusion of Compnor in this
Yes,
story, because
yes.
it's rarely talked about, but it's really developed as like an underground kind of secret society almost. Having read The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, like that was a talked about a lot by Chris Kremshaw, and it wasn't something that I had really known about. So I liked that inclusion in this book and his motivation to try and be a part of the New Order, and see that it's many different characters from not just one organization. They're ISB and this and that and that. So I really liked his motivation and kind of what he's trying to do. But he's also like, he also lied to Sidious, Palpatine, and
That
kind of
was
got away
shocking.
with it. Right.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. So I liked seeing him as a character, because I thought he carried it well. If Vader wasn't in this, I think he would have been like one of my favorite new characters, because it would have been even more focused on him
Yeah.
and what he's doing to try and overcome this sickness, and his relationship with 99 with Nines, because I thought it was cool to see a droid be manumitted essentially,
Yeah.
and have autonomy. I mean, him and Nines and L3 would have been like the best of buds, I
That's
imagine.
I
And
love
so
at
I
one point in
liked
the book
that.
he does refer to Nines as his best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And he really couldn't think of any other friends that he had. It was his
Mhm.
only friend.
Right.
Had
to
Goth not died at the end of the book, I would have loved to see another set of books. I think
Mhm.
it would have been really, really good.
I do think Compnor, like that was a thing. I'm glad you brought that up. That the way that it was included in this book, it felt like to me that this was setting up for something else. Like it
Mhm.
felt a little backdoor
Yeah.
piloty to me, like introducing that character. I can't remember her name. She's only in those
Oh,
first
The
few
then
chapters at the very
ISB,
end.
yeah, the ISB
Yeah,
agent.
the SBA agent. Like I wonder if like Adam Christopher's working on another novel,
could be.
and like
Ah.
it seems like this is a lot like when like Charles Soule and Claudia Gray were like peppering in like a High Republic
Mhm.
mention here or there, and then it was this big
Yeah.
thing. It kind of felt that way a little bit to me because they introduced her and they described her in depth, but she didn't really do anything in the book.
Mhm.
And so I'm
Yeah.
curious to see if that's
That's
something.
an excellent point. So I very much felt like this, funnily enough, was the first book in a set of books.
Mhm.
You know, they left Nines and Anusha at the end, kind of off doing their own thing. I could see them featuring in it.
Mhm.
Compnor obviously has to come back. Um, who knows?
I wonder if it
I'd
will
love
play into the Reign of the Empire series,
that would be interesting.
perhaps,
Yeah.
That would be
and form some connections to that series of the creation of the rebellion. Also, the direct opposite is the persistence of the Empire with
Yeah.
Compnor.
maybe it will show up, and maybe that's kind of what maybe this is planting seeds for that. It could
Yeah,
be that as
yeah, I
well.
could see that.
Kind of the last thing I wanted to bring up from a character perspective was there was a real theme in this book of characters having a character like within them. So you obviously have like the Vader who's like has like Anakin fighting out, and like that's what all the Force visions and stuff were doing was Vader reckoning with his Anakin side. But then we also had, as Austin mentioned, TC-99 having
Mhm.
Boxer located within him, which was like the reprogramming of his. He had been reprogrammed to be a medical droid. Now uh, or he was a combat droid. And then lastly, we also have Keel, who was the vice chair of the Cybot Galactica organization. He like programs himself in and gets possessed by uh, Sarnath, the
Mhm.
Techno Union droid. So what kind of are y'all thinking about that whole concept of the character within a character?
Well, at first I slightly to the side. I found this Sarnath Keel piece probably one of the scarier pieces of the book. I
Oh yeah.
thought the way that he willingly submitted himself to Sarnath, and then Sarnath just took him over, and that was it, pretty much. What was pretty freaky.
I think there's a level of arrogance that all three had that I'm like, no, I'm going to be able to overcome this very strong personality, very persistent thing. And all three of them, I think, had shades of overconfidence and a feeling that they'll be able to control the other when they almost all lose out. I also, yeah, the Keel Sarnath, it felt so telegraphed that it clearly wasn't going to work. It was almost like oversold a
Yeah.
little bit for me that
Yeah.
it's like, he's like, no, it'll be fine. Like, and it's like, clearly not. Like, there's going to be no chance. And so that to me, there wasn't tension with it kind of when it was happening. It's like, I obviously know it's not going to work out for him. And so that didn't land as well for me as the Nines and Boxer did, where you see it like fade, come back, and then go back, and then keep kind of shifting. So you didn't know when it was going to stick, right? Mm-hmm. I liked that. It was like as soon as Sarnath was in, it was all Sarnath pretty much. And I think I like the other way better.
I think for Nines, the piece that made that more satisfying was that we cared about Nines, whereas we did not. And we weren't supposed to care about Keel. And I think that's why I didn't mind it as much, because for me, the tension was built more from Sarnath. What is he going to do? What is his plan? That's where more of the tension was. I didn't care what happened to Keel. It didn't matter. He was a piece of the plot for me.
But
And he was evil. So
it was kind of cool though seeing like a droid care so much to like bother taking over a person. I think that was kind of like a scary, like spooky concept. And I think that it was giving like major vibes of like Monster House, not Monster House, Smart House. I don't know if you saw the old like really bad Disney Channel movies. Like, it was like,
hey, not bad, not bad.
We love DComs. On this podcast, we love
we love it.
We love
We love it. But it was kind of giving me like that that impression. And so that I think that was a neat concept that I'm not. That was very. There are several things introduced in this book that I thought were very unique, and that was definitely one of them. Do we want to move on?
Yeah. So we're going to start here. Chapter 3, Connections to a Wider Galaxy. So this one, compared to our last novel, this one had a lot of little ties throughout the entire thing. But the biggest one, of course, was the tie to the Darth Vader 2017 comic by Charles Soule. That first arc, which we reviewed, I think the previous episode, was featuring Darth Vader finding his lightsaber crystal and bleeding it. And so at the beginning of this book, we jump right into that story. So I want to know, how do you feel like the comic impacted your read of this story, and how did the comic inform the events of this story?
I don't think it's necessary, but I think it absolutely brings a much greater level of appreciation to the act of the bleeding the crystal, because it starts and it's already like he has it and he's there and he's trying to do it, and there is like references to that comic book that it creates a much bigger appreciation for me, knowing that backstory, that Vader struggled to get it and struggled in his fight and was falling apart, that he's not this big bad yet. We talked about his softness, but we also don't see, we see him kind of grow in his power in a way in this. And I think that comic really helped. But what
5 and 6 or 6
hurts
and
me
7?
a little bit is where it fits in there, because those accordion pieces,
7?
so to speak, are not very far apart.
That's right.
That's right. Kind of in between the 5th and 6th issue.
5 and 6, because we didn't read
5
7.
and 6, because 6 is with the Grand Inquisitor. Yeah. And so it fits in there, but it's such a narrow gap that it felt like the bleeding the crystal wasn't fully necessary for the rest of the novel in a way. I like the inclusion. It's really cool to see the visions and things, but it didn't feel like it was an essential part to set up the rest of the story. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way or thought about it that way.
I think the kind of the generous way you would tie it together is maybe Vader's like desire to find the temple was his desire to like cement his like to end the conflict within him. Like he was like trying to get this like really dark side heavy place to kind of like wrestle with these like thoughts of Padme and all that stuff. Like still
would
kind of
tend
squash
to
all that
agree.
down finally.
I don't really
I
see
think
how
that would make sense compared
as
to where
well
he was
into the rest of the
after
book,
this,
but I think it was a
when he's,
really
like, with the
well-written
Inquisitors and everything,
example
like,
of
that
bleeding a
softness kind
crystal.
of gone.
I really enjoyed
Yeah.
having the act being written down in a book, because we've really not had it in a book yet. So it gave us more room for detail, and I loved him expanding these little visions that Vader had throughout the issues of the comic into greater pieces. So I enjoyed it for that part, and we can always just hammer everything together. So even if it doesn't feel like there's enough time, we can say there was. All right. So another piece mentioned throughout the book is the Techno Union. That was a big part of the book. what do you think about the way that these old separatist organizations were folded into the empire? And maybe kind of think of Mask of Fear, where we had these separatist senators being folded back into the empire. So it makes sense that they would also take the organizations as well and try to fold them back into it, because it's easier to maintain an existing organization than create new organizations for all this detail. It made me think of a quote from The Empire Strikes Back where Vader says he'll join us or die. And I think that's kind of the thoughts here, is these people can either come with us or they're going to be destroyed.
Well, and there was no like qualm with it. Like, they were like very happy to just move on to the next powerful person and didn't have any. I don't remember. I assume not, but I don't remember if we know if the Techno Union was one of those groups that was like playing both sides, like the Banking Clan and the Trade Federation.
It's so murky in canon. I think Legends did that a little bit better. So
yeah, but it was just neat, like reading like the corporate like restructuring they did to just like quickly absorb the Techno Union and power through. And I was thinking the same thing. Well, we've seen similar stuff with like the Mask of Fear, and also kind of on like the flip side in Mandalorian, where we see the New Republic like accepting the Imperials into the New Republic, and so I think that was a neat thing to see. I'm pretty bummed there was no Wat Tambor mentioned, though. We don't get enough Wat Tambor.
Apparently, there's a direct mention I saw on Wikipedia. We got an indirect mention of Wat Tambor.
I liked the inclusion, and I like the way that it's like being folded and kind of picked apart. It's almost like private investment, private capital. Like you're gonna buy the company and then just dissect it and ruin it. And that is kind of what Keel is doing. Is like he's gonna dissect it and then ruin it, and he does. And so it's very much like private equity is doing that. And so
are you saying all these private equity people are evil?
Yes, I am.
Are private equity people robots who don't care about people?
But I like that. But the other thing that I liked about that and the way that it was presented as folding into the Empire is the speed at which it's done. So Palpatine has all of these steps planned out so early.
Get the whiteboard back down.
Time to dissect all the information and all of the technology and all of that, but they were doing it from the very start. Like it didn't take very long at all for them to start doing that.
And that it makes sense with like any. This is Legends now; it's not canon. But if you look at the Revenge of the Sith novelization, Dooku kind of like says kind of what he was hoping things were going to do, and it was going to be like the Republic was going to like take over all of those different organizations, and that was going to like sustain them going forward. So Palpatine probably even had Dooku doing some of that dirty work.
Setting that up for as soon as the war is done.
I do think, as a side note, something I think that Legends did better than canon when it comes to Clone Wars is having like the Techno Union and all those groups like better defined. I feel like the Clone Wars TV show really only ever talked about the Trade Federation and the Banking Clan somewhat, and it was pretty removed from the Banking Clan was like not really related to Sand Hill in the show, and like most of the other people did. I think Wat Tambor was in an episode or two, but like he's definitely not prominent. And then like all those other groups, like we don't see how they interact with all this at all. And I think there's definitely room to go back and spell that out.
Does anyone even know what the Commerce Guild does?
Yes, they were raw material. They did raw materials.
Of course, Austin knows. Austin knows.
But like they're never never talked about.
They were in Legends. There was like a decent bit with them. But in canon, there's nothing. Like there's nothing besides. Like I think if you go on like the Wikipedia page, it just like tells you where Shumai was, and like that's it.
That's it.
Austin, a quick question for you: what is the Banking Clan going to do?
They're going to sign the treaty.
They'll do what?
The
Banking Clan
sign
will
your
sign
treaty.
your treaty.
Oh my gosh.
So, some other pieces here that we see. The title of the book really is a reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi's line from the original film, where he says that Darth is only a master of evil. So that's where we're seeing. I can only assume he got the title from that. We did get many callbacks to Darth Plagueis the Wise, which I thought was very interesting. Especially seeing, I believe Padme gave the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah.
And then we also saw, lots of flashbacks to Revenge of the Sith. We saw the reverse while Vader was in the temple. He saw the opposite of the Mustafar duel happen, which was kind of interesting. And then Cybot Galactica, our big droid manufacturer series, they were the ones who produced the 3PO units. So they were the creators of C-3PO, the true masters, before he was scrapped and rebuilt by Anakin.
And the TC unit, which I wonder, 3PO is a fairly old model. Like Anakin doesn't build him from scratch. He builds him from old parts.
Yeah.
And the TC series is even older than that.
Which is interesting. Also
interesting. Yeah.
In that same movie, we have TC-14, who looks almost identical to 3PO.
Yep.
So I'm not exactly sure what the whole TC series, C series has to do, but also
I didn't even make the connection to TC-14.
Oh yeah, TC-14.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Don't forget TC-14.
I can never forget TC-14, but I do think the whole Cybot Galactica, I think that whole thing was a pretty neat inclusion. Because I didn't know that until today when I was just doing a quick reference. Oh, that's a real thing. And I think all the droid stuff. I think droid stories are always very interesting when they tell them. I think it was really cool how Sarnath was like, "I'm going to bring back the Techno Union."
I know, right? Yeah. Sarnath was going to bring back the Confederacy of Independent Systems.
It reminded me of Christopher Lloyd's character in Mandalorian, or I think it was Mandalorian, where he was he's like, Count Dooku was a visionary.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. To be fair, he was.
He was a visionary.
He was a visionary.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on to our lessons learned?
So for our lessons learned, we're going to talk about what we thought this book was trying to teach us, trying to tell us, a la the Clone Wars in that opening title, where there is a usually one sentence story that's going to be kind of the theme moral of the story. So I'll start us off. I think a big theme of this book was fear and kind of anger and hatred, and especially fear of death. And so I thought that the kind of overall theme was that fear is a powerful motivator, but it will lead to a path of despair. And I think one character we haven't talked very much about is Anusha and her mom. Zaroon really wants to go after Vader, but she's afraid of him, right? She is fearful of him, and leads her on this path of destruction and just sadness at what happened to her husband, the shaman. But I see that through Goth, through Vader, through multiple different characters, that they are constantly afraid of things, and that's dictating to them what they should do and how they should act, right? And it just leads to a bad place, despair, sadness, loss. And all of them, pretty much all of our characters lose something. Nines loses Goth. Anusha loses her mom Zaroon. Oyuka dies, and so does Keel. So all of these characters kind of end up in bad places. Even Vader really is in a bad, despairful place.
Somebody should have told Zaroon that fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that Vader may have said the exact opposite in this book. So
he did.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Fear leads to power.
I love that part, though. That was great.
Yeah. All right. For mine, for me, when I was I had a hard time thinking of a theme for this one, but what I looked to the title, of it to try to kind of like steer what the author was trying to tell me here. And so I put down evil is a constant choice, not an inevitability. And like kind of what reason I arrived at that conclusion was Vader in this book, I think, is trying to learn how to be evil. Like he's constantly wrestling with he's constantly having these visions of seeing like Padme or Obi-Wan or somebody like trying to offer him a way out, and he's having to constantly like we see there's no shortage of opportunities for Vader to change his path, but he has to constantly choose every day to wake up and be an evil person. And I think that that's the moral here, and you see that with other characters like Keel. Keel has to choose to let Sarnath in, and so like, you can see it. Zarun has to choose to let her anger dictate her path.
I like that.
So that was
like that. That's something to think about in real life.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you see people.
Marjorie Taylor Greene right now.
Yeah, yeah.
That she's realizing when you're evil and then people are evil to you, maybe you don't want to do that anymore. So it's not an inevitability. You can change.
Yeah.
The $21 million probably helps too, but
wow,
makes it easier.
Makes it easier to swallow that pill.
Yeah. I like the connection to Vader learning to be a master of evil. He's not there yet, right?
Yeah.
But he's trying to learn, how do I be more evil?
By episode 4, he will be more evil. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yep.
All right. I focused more on loyalty. So that, especially the very beginning of this book really had a hard focus on loyalty and who is loyal to whom. So my moral is, in an empire of fear, loyalties are always changing. So Goth is loyal to the Emperor until he's not, until he's loyal to Vader.
Yeah.
And Vader's loyal to the Emperor until it's inconvenient, and then he lies to the Emperor and shows disloyalty. So when you're creating this atmosphere of evil, danger, threat, you are making it easier for people to be disloyal to you. And the Emperor around him creates that kind of atmosphere. So it's no surprise that people are going to betray him, compared to other systems of government in Star Wars that we see where all of the, the fighting and the power mongering, that all happens kind of behind the shadows. And in the Empire, it happens right out front. And they're always going to be loyal to whoever's going to serve them the most. So that's kind of what I got from this.
I like that. The idea of like the rat race not being worthwhile.
Yeah.
Not, if you drag other people down, it's not lifting you up.
Yeah. Well, and I think Goth is like a very timely example, because he's initially loyal to the Emperor, and then he has to like kind of choose which way he's going to go, and he goes with Vader because he sees like this is a path to healing my sickness. But at the end, he chooses loyalty to his friend, and he chooses TC-99 over Vader, and I think that's a good lesson that's applicable to real life.
Gosh, Goth was, I just really, I know we've said it a couple times, just really enjoyed Goth, and I feel like he had to die by the end of this. Like, it was building to that, and it made sense for him to die. But I would have loved to see more content with Goth. I think that he was a really complex character, and it may have been fun to see him make one of those Empire to Rebellion moves one day, but we'll never know if he would have done that because he's dead.
I'm hearing prequel.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it very much, but it's wild that he was in the Darth Plagueis the Wise scene.
I know, right? I was just in the back. I need to rewatch it and see if we can see Goth.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love when those kind of moments are there. It'd be like, now that character in that background has so much more importance that you never really thought of. Like Baron Papanoida being George Lucas, and then in the Clone Wars, he has like multiple episodes featuring him. And Appo,
and he's the one who's killed by what is it, Zet? What do they call him? Zet Jukasa?
Zet Jukasa, George Lucas's son.
I
I
loved
love
the when he was describing the Darth Plagueis the Wise, and you could tell he had like the visual dictionary out and was like listing like the senators and stuff that were in the box.
Yeah.
So all in all, I think that Adam Christopher he wrote this very well. He paid very good attention to the details. The Vader part didn't do a lot for me. The rest of it did do for me. I really enjoyed Goth as a character. Pretty good book. Didn't hit what I was hoping for, but pretty good.
I think it's one that I'm planning to reread to see if, after kind of talking it through and thinking about it and being a little separated from those expectations, if I view it differently.
Yeah.
And now that I know the story and I know where it's going, if I catch more things and have a better sense of the overall story.
And that's the big thing with Star Wars content. I feel like so many people are informed by expectations, and we've talked about this for the past 2 episodes, but when you're going in with high expectations, they're never going to be met. So take the piece for what it is, not what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Which I do think Lucasfilm publishing marketing could probably do a better job of.
No, they could. They could.
Of setting expectations.
Please stop telling us it's something we want it to be.
Yeah.
Or
just make the book.
If the romance novel Next Submarine isn't actually a romance, I may
dead inside.
Yeah.
The most romance we'll see is when they say, "Fetch me my slippers."
Is that a reference?
Yeah. Aspects of love. Don't worry about it. You can cut it.
Okay.
So,
we're reaching Austin's silly hours of the evening.
We are reaching Austin's silly hours.
Well, I think that maybe then is a signal for us to close it out. Hopefully y'all have read the book. If you haven't, you've gotten something out of this episode. If you have, leave us a comment, leave us a note of a book maybe you want us to read or a topic that you want us to talk about. But for our next couple episodes, the next episode that we're planning to do is going to be watching the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I've probably never watched in one sitting straight through.
Austin and I watched it for the first time last year.
Okay.
We, as we always say, love to find positivity in all Star Wars, and so we will be working real hard.
Yeah.
Real hard. There's something beautiful there are things that are beautiful about it, and we will talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we haven't fully talked about what's going to be after that. An idea that I had was talking about a year ahead, looking towards 2026. We have a lot of stuff to look forward to: books, comics, a movie, Mandalorian, Grogu. And so I think we might be trying to talk about what this next year is going to look like for Star Wars, and talking about some of our expectations, talking about some of the things we're excited for, and things that we're hoping for the next year. And then it's an open book. It's a while until we have another book coming out. That's gonna be February with Low Red Moon. And so we kind of have some open things. So again, if you guys have a topic that you want us to tackle, want us to talk about, leave us a comment, leave us a message. You can always reach us at rogue3media@gmail.com or rogue3 on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. So, give us a drop and let us know what you're interested in talking about, with some positivity towards Star Wars.
It's always positive.
Yeah. Well, I think with that, this is going to be Rogue 3 signing off, and we will see you all later.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us to talk about the galaxy far, far away. You can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok as Rogue 3 Media. We look forward to talking with you at the next rendezvous point.